Welcome to FCTV podcast. I'm here with Sarah Davis, who is Vice President of Marketing at Fidium, where she's been right in the middle of some of the biggest rural broadband expansion projects in the Northeast. Sarah has spent nearly 20 years figuring out how to turn funding, policy, and local partnerships into real fiber networks, connecting homes, communities that have been underserved for years. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you. First thing, tell me a little bit about Fidium and who you guys serve.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to come here and talk about this as well. So Fidium is a fiber-first network service provider. We operate in 26 states. We serve homes, businesses, institutions, and then network partners with reliable, scalable broadband. We serve over 700 communities. We have over 2 million passings and growing. We're on a mission to become America's favorite and fastest growing fiber provider, and we're doing that one rural community at a time.
Okay, now when we're talking rural, what are we talking in terms of I think somebody told me that you gauge that by how close you are to a Walmart. So what do these communities look like when we're talking about rural communities?
Oh, I have all kinds. So okay. I'm from Maine. We have some of the most interesting rural communities there. Maine is our largest market. Sometimes a rural community is an island and they are literally 2 miles off the coast of Maine. Sometimes a rural community doesn't even have a municipality. It's a township. It's known as a place. It doesn't even have a name and its own zip code. So we're talking very rural.
Okay. So how have you guys done in terms of getting all those folks connected? I think I read something somewhere that Maine is one of the most connected states in the country. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we've done it one meeting at a time, quite literally. So all of you familiar with the New England lifestyle, one of our favorite things that we have is town meeting. And that is literally how you get everything done. And at Fidium, we adopted the mindset 6 years ago, right at the height of the COVID pandemic, that we were going to work with communities to solve these broadband solutions one way or another, and just started going out there and meeting with the communities. And our biggest mindset was just saying to these communities, we're never going to say no. We're just going to keep slogging. We'll figure out how we get there together, and we'll really make this happen. And the result is that Maine is one of the best connected states in the nation. It went from a place of really being unconnected to being very connected. New Hampshire is the number 2 most connected state in the nation. That's largely been done on a ton of community partnerships, state and federal partnerships.
So what accelerated that growth? I mean, was it the pandemic? Was it some federal money coming out? We got the BEAD program. What accelerated the growth there?
Yeah, for us, it was a couple of things. So first, we were really lucky to get a private equity partner that wanted to invest in fiber, right? Capital is important, and that's an important part of our story. But then really, it was the pandemic really accelerated a mindset that we have to figure this out one way or another. It's not acceptable for our children to not have a way to connect to school, right? It was the only way to go to school. And so through that, we developed different partnerships with different partners in each place. In New Hampshire, it was really accelerated with towns taking control. They knew that the states and the feds were not going to come save them. And they said, how can we make this happen? And we really leveraged their ability to borrow, to use TIFs and different kinds of funding to borrow on a fiber network that we built and operated, but they own the backbone infrastructure. And so that really started the momentum there. In Maine, for instance, it was an NTIA BIP grant, and the state wanted to partner with us to get a really big grant in, and we ended up with an over $22 million grant that connected 17 communities. And it was just those kind of things and working with these communities that led us to believe there's a way, as long as we all keep working at it, and every way is going to look different, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's funny, I was having coffee this morning and just ran into someone here at the show, and when I told him what we were going to be talking about, which is rural broadband, he said, yeah, but we've had all these government subsidies. Why should I, city dweller, why should I be helping fund people in rural, like, why can't they do it themselves, or why do they even need to be that connected? I mean, when people say that to you, what's your answer?
My answer is that in the way that the world has changed and what we're doing, there is just no way not to be connected. We come in a space and place where you have to utilize the internet for everyday life. There are many places that, you can't get a paper bill from a company anymore. You can't interact with your bank as easily, as simple as through COVID going to school. I mean, you're just robbing them of all opportunity. And the problem is, if you don't focus on the places that need it the most, you're just going to leave them to die on the vine. The cities can take care of themselves, but the rural areas aren't equipped to do that. They're seeing their healthcare institutions go away. They have more constraints with gas prices, and leaving them behind isn't acceptable. We have to bring everybody in our country to a standard. I talk to people that don't believe it. What do you mean they're not connected? I said, they don't have an option that works. They cannot log on to the internet. And people just look at you. Like, can you imagine your world like that?
Yeah.
It's
but we're
not
almost there,
acceptable.
right? I mean, it sounds like in your areas, it's few and far between, it sounds like, anymore that people have nothing.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like the concerted effort of the feds, the states, the local governments, everybody just wanting to row in the same direction has brought us to a place where we are all connected. And fortunately, it's something you don't have to think about. That's the problem. People don't want to fund it because it's not something they want to think about. But when you don't have it, it's all you can think about.
Right. Like other things that we just take for granted, like sewers.
Yeah, exactly.
Water access and, electricity. It's come to that. Yeah, everybody has said that for a while.
Yeah. Can you imagine if during rural electrification they said, too bad?
Yeah, we're not
just
going there.
We'll just let some people not have power. I mean,
it's
not how it works.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about these communities that you're in. And you mentioned access to healthcare.
Yeah.
And, there have been big cuts in federal money to funding for Medicaid and Medicare, and a lot of rural hospitals really focus and need that money to be able to operate. So in the areas where you guys are you seeing hospital closures, and like, how is that sort of affecting the need for telehealth and access to just basic healthcare?
Yeah, so we are. We see rural healthcare closures all over the place. We see a shortage of available doctors in rural areas, dentists, all sorts of healthcare providers. And so the internet really changes the game for many people. As our boomers are getting a little older, they can't get to these places that are now hours away because the one that was a half an hour away closed. And so allowing them to get online and really access telehealth is a game changer. It saves them a ton of money too. When you're both losing your Medicare and gas prices have skyrocketed, going to the hospital 2 hours away once a week just isn't an option anymore. And so it's one of the ways that I'm super proud to be changing people's lives.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, some of those hospitals without that funding, I mean, they're not going to exist. So I would imagine, if before you had to drive an hour to the doctor, maybe now some people are having to drive 2-3 hours away. It just becomes like not feasible, right?
Yeah. No, it's impossible, and we serve islands. I mean, you have to get up, get to a ferry, get on the ferry, and then somehow get a vehicle transportation when you hit the ferry dock and get to a hospital that could be very far away. That's a lot to ask of a citizen, and them being able to just call their doctor and get on a video chat and go through symptoms and get responses is an absolute game changer.
Yeah. Let's talk about remote work and how that has sort of changed. Obviously, I think we're all familiar, like since COVID, everybody was working from home. That really sort of accelerated. I was, an early adopter. I was already doing that before, but, it really sort of changed the game. How did it change things for your community or the communities that you guys serve? And are you, I know there have been a lot of companies that are asking people to come back to work, but it's still out there, right? So how has it changed for people in all the many states that you guys serve?
Yeah, I think even when they're asking people to come back to work, they still have the option of being remote at some points, right? And so it's really changed our communities. I mean, the need for bandwidth skyrocketed. You really notice latency issues when you're on a video chat and it's not working, a video call. And So it's really changed for our communities. They were able to stay longer too. We serve areas that are very seasonal, and people may have summer houses there. They may be snowbirds, different things. They used to not be able to come to their seasonal home or back home and stay for long periods of time because they weren't able to work. And now with bandwidth that allows them to do that, they can stay longer. So it's helping improve the economy in these rural areas, allowing people to live where they want instead of living where they work, because they can be in a wonderful place with a wonderful quality of life and still remote into the office and keep all the economy going.
Yeah. So what is, I mean, I don't know if you've seen or have any examples of folks doing that and like, have coffee shops or like businesses in towns like talked about how that's affected things, just having people around for longer in the season.
Oh, yeah. It's been an absolute boom to those seasonal economies, and having people around longer, the income that it brings into the many small businesses. Maine is over 80% small business. And so for each of them, they eat out when they come. They go to the coffee shops. They engage in the local economy in a way that is absolutely life-changing for those communities.
So what about is it keeping young people in those communities longer? Because I know that like a lot of rural communities, people graduate from high school or from college, and then they're like, there isn't a job here for me, and so I'm gonna, leave and go someplace else, go to a big city. Or have you guys, or have some of the communities that you work with seen some of that? Like not so much of the brain drain?
Yeah. No, it's definitely helping that, because recent graduates don't feel the need to go seek out the job. They can look for the job and still do it at home and work for any large company. These rural areas sometimes can be not that affordable. They can be very expensive places to live because of how beautiful they are and what people invest in second homes there. And so it's a huge concern for us in all of our communities when we can't keep enough young people sometimes to even staff the fire department with volunteers.
Oh, wow.
That was sort of what we were facing prior to COVID and really the game changing. And now those young people can stay here. They can work for any company, multinational companies, and then they get to stay in the community they love. And just the way that changes everybody's perspective. We all want the same things, right? We'd love our kids to stay close. We'd love our kids to be in a community they're happy with and feel safe in, instead of having to go to the bigger cities simply because that's where opportunity is.
Right. And it has other impacts too. Like just, I think we were talking a little bit in a pre-call that we had about civic engagement.
Mm-hmm.
and what is, something simple as having broadband connection allows people to be more engaged in government. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's, our government has moved online, and that is really important for participation, because lives are busy now and people are busy with all the activities they have to do, and they may not be able to engage. I was just at a town meeting last week, and there were 6 people sitting in the room, and there were 22 people on the Zoom call. And we ended up having a really robust conversation as opposed to what would have gone on if everyone had to be there in person. People
wouldn't be able to show up.
They
right?
aren't able to show up. You can, and it's fun when you see the engagement and hear people speaking about something they're passionate about, and kids are running around in the background and life is going on. That's something that could not have happened and would not have been able to participate. And then you just end up with a government of the few, and that's not going to produce the outcomes we want anywhere.
Yeah. I want to shift gears just a little bit here. Because one of the things, now that there's all this connectivity and fiber and broadband in rural communities, a lot of talk about data centers. Data centers want to come to rural areas, maybe not the really pretty parts where it's expensive, but some of the places where land is cheap and they can, really build out. But there's a lot of resistance, right? Like there's a lot of people who are like, not in my backyard, no thanks. I mean, what's your perspective? Is it good? Is it bad? What are we seeing?
So data centers are really important, and moving data centers closer to the edge and distributing them more is a really important part of our future, right? The data has to be housed and has to be housed somewhere. And the more centralized that is, the more risk there is to our data and our economy. And so we really have to move them closer to the customer. So it's really important. The key is finding the right place, packaging it correctly, and really having the conversation about it. You're probably aware, but Maine was very close to being the first state in the nation to ban data centers.
Yeah.
They were going to ban all data centers over 20 megawatts. And what happened was one was supposed to be located in a former mill in a town that was really, is struggling post paper mill closures. And the governor vetoed the bill because she said you didn't adequately carve out this important economic tool for this community that's really struggling and suffering. And so what we have to do as an industry is educate the people. It's always where you have to start. The big new
but there are some risks, and those are valid. The power infrastructure isn't there. It generates a lot of heat, and so is that all not true, or is that just sort of the mega scalers, and that's not what we're always talking about when we're talking about allowing data centers into our communities?
So that's really important. You have to talk about scale, right? We're not talking 800 megawatts for all of them. And so you really need the impact studies and educate the people on the real effects. So, in Maine, we are very, very cautious about our water infrastructure, and data centers use tremendous amounts of water. So it's really just helping the community understand the benefits and talking honestly and openly about the distinctions and the differences. And, there's a solution that fits everywhere. It's not always the large ones in some places, but, people understanding like the other side of it, which is that if we don't get these more distributed and closer to the customers, we're really going to struggle in the end for moving all the data, doing all the AI work that we all think is really important and really going to change our lives.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'm going to give you the last word here. So, is there anything that you want people to know about broadband in rural communities, either how it's changing things or how is it going to look in, say, 10 years?
Yeah.
So go ahead. Give your last word here.
So a couple of things. So in 10 years, we're not even going to be talking about it. It's not going to be a story. They're all going to have it, which is the end game. That is when I will have my proudest moment, when we don't have to talk about a community that's underserved anymore. And so Fidium's really changing the game. We're moving our stuff faster. We're getting to those rural communities. We're meeting the communities where they are, and we're not supposing that they're any different and that they need connectivity any less than any large city. And so, our final word to you all is to get out there and fiber up.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a really great conversation here on FCTV. So I'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me.